All right, it is time for the Game Day Huddle. What's up, Jay?
What's going on, everybody?
Jimmy is off today, guys. Long weekend of Prism football, and the guy was in the building all weekend long because that product has been absolutely on fire. And man, has this shop been hot.
I saw. Especially with
my
Mac
gosh.
Jones. Like I felt like everything was like Mac Jones.
It was. So it started with me. It started with me on release Friday.
Yeah.
I hit a orange wave to 60. Right? And then all of a sudden the floodgates open.
Yeah.
We have silver signatures coming out. We've got case hits coming out. We got color blasts. The guys hit 2 color blasts. I mean, it's just been crazy. Yeah. We still got multiple cases in the shop that are going. But again, Jimmy taking the day after a long weekend of Prism football because they were here a lot.
Yeah.
And they were rocking and rolling with it. So good, well-deserved day off. But welcome, everybody, to the Game Day Huddle. My name is Steve. Jay up in the building.
What's up?
We are here every single Monday with you guys, hanging out, talking about the sports world and what's been going on. And we're going to get into it early because, you know, if you're under a rock, you weren't watching this last night. Everyone else was. NBA Finals. I'm telling you, we're having the classic slugfest so far. You have Celtics take Game 1, and they looked really good.
Yeah.
And then you had the Warriors last night take Game 2.
Yes.
And they looked
dominant.
like Steph was absolutely on fire.
Yes, and you know what? All this happened with Klay Thompson having a pretty bad game, in my opinion. Like, he didn't shoot well. He was 1 for 8 in shooting threes, and he was 4 for 19 from the field. So, like, he didn't have a Klay Thompson type game. And they still were able to win by almost 20 points.
Yeah, and he was in the game at the end of the game.
Yeah.
As like a confidence builder.
Yeah.
To try to get him shooting a little better. I'm not too worried about him because I feel like that team, the one thing that they can do is have one guy be off for the night.
Yeah.
And they can have 2 other guys pick it up.
Right.
Right? And then you got Williams who's hurt for the Celtics, right?
Yes.
And obviously that changes the big man,
It definitely changes things.
Absolutely.
Iguodala sat last night for Golden State also.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a couple of minor bumps and bruises. It was literally, it was like a tale of 2 different games. Like, Boston did what they wanted to do. They came in, they split in Golden State. That's exactly what they wanted to do. They didn't go into it and expected to win both games in Golden State. They got the split. I'm sure they're happy. Horford completely disappeared in Game 2. He had 2 points after having that great Game 1. Marcus Smart, who's not really known for his scoring, but he only had 2 points last night as well. So it was a big mixture of things. And you saw a couple good stats on
Tatum was basically like the worst in deficiency for the game.
Yeah.
And that's, you never want your superstar to be the guy who turns the ball over more than, than he scores.
Yeah.
So that's never a good thing. But nevertheless, that kicked off last night, and we talk about you talk about guys that weren't hot, and then you can talk about this guy.
Ball launches. Oh, money! Just begun. Flat out, get it done. Recognizing the clock dwindling down. Knocks down the long ball. Good old-fashioned game of pool.
So Jordan Poole, obviously, he was a little cold. He wasn't great in the first game. He was a little cold in the first quarter.
Half, yeah.
First half, but towards the end of the first quarter, But second half, dude took over, showed you how to close a game. He absolutely, and he was on fire. He was hitting his shots. And like, what was funny about that is that's a very Steph thing right there.
Yes.
And that was literally Poole being Steph.
Poole being Steph with 3 guys in his face, and he's like, I'm just going to heave up. That was actually a heat check.
Yeah.
Because he was on fire, and they had built that, 25, 26-point lead, and he was like, I'm just going to heave it up.
Yeah.
Like, everything's going in right now. You know what I mean? And that's what they say, like, when the rim looks like it's as big as the ocean.
Yeah.
That's how he was feeling last night. And he's like, I'm going to heave it up there. And that thing went right through. I was like, this guy's on fire right now.
He has, and he's been, over the beginning of these playoffs, there's been quite a bit of talk about him in the hobby space.
We've been on him all year.
We've been on him since the
All
jump.
year.
So if you were watching us, you knew early on to grab him. But he is definitely taking another turn here in this championship set. That there's a really good chance that you're going to see that stuff even more
I agree.
explosion from it. And what's crazy to think, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's crazy to think is that this comes out of a John Morant, Zion Williamson rookie class.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
You know, like the price of that product, kids. If you don't get it today, it's going to be up here very soon.
Guy added to the mix there. Like I said, and we've been on Poole all year because we even talked about when Klay comes back, will it mess up Poole's chemistry or will he take less shots?
Yeah.
And we all kind of agreed that like I think he has a defined role on the team.
Yeah.
Even when Klay comes back, and Klay's up and down sometimes, but Poole has been pretty consistent throughout. So
yeah, they like him a lot there. They should. Very, very good player. So speaking of talking about a guy before, like we have about Poole, we talked about this a little bit last week, but Quinn Snyder of the Utah Jazz stepped down.
Yes.
And first off, he's my vote for the next Green Goblin role. Everyone. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely a doppelganger.
He is. But what's big about this is that I know we're talking about Utah. We're talking about a team that just didn't realize. He came out and said basically his role for stepping away, and the reason why he was stepping away is because the team needed a new voice. They just needed someone clean and new to listen and talk to. Now, on the outside looking in, this looks like a very simplistic move.
Yes.
Jazz probably puts the pressure on. Quinn Snyder steps down. The Lakers are kicking themselves in the pants for, hiring early, right? Instead of waiting just a little bit longer, they could have waited just a little bit.
Right.
And I guarantee you Quinn Snyder would have been high on that list.
Oh, for sure.
Now it's who needs a coach and who might need a coach becomes the question, because now when he's on the market, it's a different thing. Quinn Snyder's a very good basketball coach with limited resources. He did really well. But what we talked about was him and his star player, Donovan Mitchell. Right? That Donovan Mitchell and Quinn Snyder had a chemistry, a relationship.
Right.
There was a trust there. Donovan really liked being there. In fact, so much that Donovan actually had went out and when he signed his extension, because we talked about how many years did he have?
5-year deal extension.
Right?
Yeah.
Signed his extension. The number one thing on his extension deal was because Quinn Snyder was there.
Yeah.
And then stories like this surface. Jazz Donovan Mitchell surprised and disappointed following Quinn Snyder's departure from Utah per report. What does that say to you?
There's a couple different things, and I was kind of going through a rabbit hole over here before the show started to see because there was all kinds of different like weird stories put out there, and then there's all kinds of theories to back that stuff up.
Right.
Is he going to ask to be traded now? Did they maneuver Quinn Snyder out because they knew the writing was on the wall and they knew that Donovan Mitchell was going to ask to be traded? Like, does that open the door for this now? Like, I don't think he stays.
I don't either, and I think that this was that premeditated move by a team like the Jazz that are now premeditating this move, that it could very well happen. And we talked about landing spots, we talked about scenarios, we talked about situations, and you're sitting there and you're looking at it and you're saying, now this Donovan Mitchell thing becomes a lot more real, which means I double back and I'm even more in the moment now to go by, right? Than I was before, because this is even a lot more real than it was a week ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me that a week ago we were talking about him being undervalued. We were talking about this. And this week we're talking about, you know what? This is realistic. He could be on the move.
He was on our plus-minus segment.
Yeah.
Right? And we're talking about going out and getting this guy because he was so undervalued. Like, we had that whole list about him being undervalued. And now he's probably going to ask for a trade with Quinn Snyder being going.
He's going to have to.
And if he ends up going to one of those teams that we talked about that has a huge market, his stuff's going to go up. If he goes to the Lakers, if he goes to the Knicks, if he goes to one of these teams that has like this big market, his stuff is going to go up. It was just, the story came out because there's also another story that how he said he was surprised and the other story came out that said he was unsettled and unnerved about the Quinn Snyder departure. Well, so that's why all these rumors are swirling.
And I wonder if that's because maybe he knew. Right. Maybe. See, here's the thing. What we don't know is those inner discussions.
Correct.
We never know these things. And I would guarantee you that Quinn Snyder gave a call to Donovan Mitchell and said, "Hey, just as a heads up, I'm stepping down, and I want you to be the first to know," type thing. But I guarantee you that there's probably another discussion that's been there of maybe the fact that Donovan went to him and he's like, "Look, you know what? It's time for me to probably leave too."
And they're saying that Utah circles are saying that possibly that he's okay with Quinn Snyder departing, and that now they're going to go to Donovan and be like, hey, you're going to have a lot of say. Who do you want to be the next coach to try to get him to stay?
Well, that might be their move to try to get him to stay. But
Correct.
if you're in Donovan's camp at this point, right, your guy steps down, you kind
trust
of,
him,
and maybe the fact that Donovan was questioning things was already driving the fact that Quinn Snyder looked at it and said, "You're right. Front office isn't giving you the help. You're not getting the things you need.
Right.
It's time to maybe, the guy I think that this affects the most is Brandon Clarkson.
Yeah.
That's the guy that this immediacy really hurts, because what he was getting in a role there and stuff, I would hope someone coming in. But who takes that job? And where's Quinn Snyder land? Because I don't see him unemployed very long.
No,
he's a very good basketball
He's not going to be
coach.
unemployed very long. And like you said, the number one choice would have been obviously the Lakers, but they had to immediately go out and hire, was it Darvin Ham?
Yeah.
So I'm sure they're kicking themselves a little bit for that. Like, what was the rush?
Yeah.
Like, what was the rush? Was Darvin Ham on everybody's
Could this be?
radar?
Could he be a guy? Could he be a guy that could fix the Clippers?
He could be a guy that can fix the Clippers. You're going to a major market. And
So that to me is interesting. And then my thought is, and just throwing conspiracy theory out there, what if he went to Clippers and then Donovan forced a trade to go to LA?
And now he's in LA, which is a big market.
Wonder if maybe there's discussions there.
You saw Kawhi, do well when he was in that market. So it's a possibility. It's a possibility.
It'd be interesting.
We kind
Donovan,
of the Knicks too, but I don't know what the contract situation is for the Knicks coach. I don't know if they plan on keeping him or what.
yeah, and I'd have to look into that too. I don't know enough about it to see, but
the Knicks, but
we would see. So something interesting happened this weekend. Now there was a Kobe jersey that sold for an obscene amount of money.
Right.
It was one of his first finals
Yep.
jerseys and whatnot. But Wayne Gretzky's final Edmonton Oiler jersey sold this weekend at auction. It sold Great Flannel Auctions. And what's interesting about it is that you think about the values of what some of this memorabilia is selling for now, and the numbers that it's setting, and realizing that modern day jerseys, memorabilia, stuff like that are selling for just crazy amounts of money. When you think about what the last football, or so they thought, touchdown that Tom Brady throws sold for, right? This jersey sold for $1.475 million. I personally am surprised it went that low.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about, like, his nickname is the Great One. Like, you're talking about the mecca of hockey. You know what I mean? Like, there is nobody better. So,
right. When you get on the Mount Rushmore of sports, right? The top in the sports. There's not even another name that's even relatively close to Gretzky. I think we'll be talking about Conor McGregor or McDavid at some point.
Right.
That way.
You could,
but I don't know right now.
Right.
We are.
There's a lot of guys that you could say that are are superstars and they could be possible Hall of Famers. But you're talking about the Great One. You're talking about the number one. Even people that aren't hockey fans have heard of Wayne Gretzky. You know what I mean?
Right.
He has that name. Just like, even if you've never watched a baseball game, you've heard of Babe Ruth.
Right, of course. Yeah, and that's exactly it.
Michael Jordan.
Right, and when you're talking about a guy like this, when you're talking about, specifically the guy that's the greatest ever in his sport, and on top of it, hockey fans in general, hockey people in general, have a tendency to definitely be like huge collectors of memorabilia, huge collectors of their team, huge collectors of their best players, right? I don't know. It was undervalued to me, but very well. Nevertheless, it's cool to see an amazing piece of memorabilia existing out there, and it's going to live on. It's moving into a new collection.
It's undervalued as well.
And that to me was, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, it was just surprising. Baseball power rankings. Every couple of weeks we do this. We are back for baseball power rankings. We're going to talk about it because there were some changes. So things shifted a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. So you have the Yankees holding tight at 1. Well, they jumped to 1, but let's be fair. I don't think any of us thought the Yankees shouldn't have been at the top of the list last week or 2 weeks ago.
They should have been at the top of the list. They
And
were
they
on fire at that point, too.
Yeah, and they took 2 no-hitters this week into late into games.
Yeah.
Again, their pitching is dominant, which I think the question was at the beginning of the year, would their pitching be this good?
Correct.
Their pitching is incredibly well. And we'll talk more about the Yankees in today's episode, especially of getting closer to the trade deadline and that stuff. So you have that. Your biggest jump, though, which was kind of surprising, is that the Blue Jays, right? They jumped 5 spots to number 6 on the list, but we'll go through really quick. Number 2 is the Dodgers. I don't think that's a surprise as far as the National League. They lost. I guess they were swept by the Pirates, right? And then
But they split with the Mets. Didn't they just?
and they've just been consistent.
Yeah.
Right. Those losses weren't horrible losses. They weren't. It wasn't like that. The Mets are absolutely. They dominated the Nationals, which is a whole nother conversation point. Absolutely, it was horrible. I think they scored 25 plus runs, and in the 3-game series, and it might have been 4 or 5 runs for the Nationals in the series.
I think the Mets are right up there with the Dodgers, though. Like, I know the Dodgers have that big bankroll, but I think the Mets are right up there with them.
I think the Mets are up there. I think that they're in need of making a move at the deadline.
Yes.
Whereas I don't know that the Dodgers need to make a move.
They don't need to.
Dodgers making a move are probably making a move to solidify the back end of a bullpen.
Right.
Or they get some crazy blockbuster offer for some of the prospects that they're housed, sitting on to grab someone that, could be an absolute game changer, but I don't see it happen. Number 4 is the Astros. I do see being active. Astros, though, very, very good, and again, they're looking great. The Angels took a fall back this week in the power rankings. The Angels are on the front end, on the top end, they're really good, and on the back end, they're really bad. They're, and you can definitely see it. Brewers at 5. I'm still kind of shocked with this team because I like the Cardinals so much.
I feel the same way with the Brewers. I feel like they're one of those teams that, they're top 5 in the power rankings, right? But I just don't see them there at the end.
I don't.
I just don't see them there at the end.
I see the Brewers as a team that literally, if I was to put them in a 3-game series against the Cardinals, that I would bet the Cardinals 9 out of every 10 times.
And I think the Cardinals are one of those teams where even though they're in the top 5, they're one of those teams that no one wants to play come playoffs.
No one wants to play them.
No one wants to draw the Cardinals.
No.
You know what I mean? And the Brewers, I just don't feel that way.
And they keep bringing guys up
Yeah.
that just keep producing.
Right.
It's unreal.
Right.
It's a freaking factory. It's a factory in there. Blue Jays at 6. This is the team that we thought would be the top. I actually thought they would be the top of the AL East.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they're not leading the division is shocking to me. They're another team. Blue Jays, Cardinals, in those 2 respective leagues, I don't think anybody wants to be playing them
But it's
when it
another
matters.
weird situation with them too, because you talk about that, and it's literally up and down with them. They start up on fire. Remember, they were number 1 in the power rankings when the first power rankings came out, and then they dropped way down, number 10, and now they're back up.
Yeah, well, they just jumped from this week from 11th to 6th. So biggest jump of the
up
week.
and down, yeah.
Padres, Cardinals, Rays, Twins round out the top 10.
Yeah.
The Twins being the sneaky one there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody thought the Twins were going to be bad this year.
No.
I don't think that anybody thought the Twins were going to be as good as they were last year.
Right.
And the fact that the Twins are as good as they were last year, and I'll be honest, I think they're even a tick better, is very surprising. And you talked about some moves in fantasy and some of the stuff that they were doing to make their team better.
I had mentioned it numerous weeks.
And there you go.
I have them again on the list.
And you got Royce Lewis is going off now. You got guys that
on
are
the fantasy waiver wire pickup.
Exactly. You got guys that are making moves. Moving down through there, the Guardians at 16.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd have told me that the Guardians would be 1 position in the power rankings about a third of the way through the season to the White Sox, I would have absolutely went all in and bet everything I had on it. There would have been no way I thought the Guardians would be where they're at.
I just don't think that.
And the Guardians are sitting there right behind the White Sox. And the fact the White Sox are at 15 is also another one that's kind of tough for me. Rounding out the bottom 3, just to talk about these guys, Nationals at 28, the Reds at 29, and the Royals keep being the Royals, sitting there at 30. It's unfortunate for the Royals, and I hate that the Royals are doing that. But unfortunately, you have these guys, these teams that just they're not very good on the front end, and
they're not a good front office.
No.
I'm just glad that my A's aren't in the bottom 3.
No, they are in bottom 4.
Well, but not bottom 3.
3. So, I was avoiding that. So that brings me talking about these. That brings me to talk about the trade rumors.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about some of these players on this list. So these are guys that, as of the 5th, we'll state that because I think it's important for us to put that date down.
Yeah.
Are guys that are on people's radars as potentially being traded. Now let's blow through the pictures really quick. Let's talk about them. You got Frankie Montes of the A's, probably the best bang for your buck arm out there. Probably got a little bit of control for him. Return will be big, and we know the A's are going to be sellers in this market.
Every year.
So I'm going to tell you right now, Montes is going to get moved. Where he goes, he will impact a rotation. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that gets innings. He's a guy that gets outs. He's a guy that can pitch, and he can pitch anywhere.
Right.
Because his splits are really, really good. So I think he'll be good. Tyler Mahle of the Reds is an interesting one. Because, again, he's a guy that I think he comes in. He's your 3-4 on most competing teams' rotations. He could be a guy, though, that could be pitching a Game 3, Game 6 of a series. So it could be a big deal with him. Coming down, Martin Perez for the Rangers. I think that's more of just we've got guys coming, and we're kind of where we are this year. We're kind of building for 2 years out. We didn't make the moves. Half their offseason, they spent money on Simeon. And
but it was a weird offseason, too, remember?
Right. Yeah. And I think they're looking at this next offseason as a way to do it. Some veterans on the list. You got Jose Quintana with the Pirates, formerly of the Cubs. Probably a guy that gets moved. It's pretty par for the course here with that. Wade Miley and Kyle Hendricks are on this list. Both Cubs. We know the Cubs are in major rebuilding mode.
Yeah, they're not trying to win anything
right.
this year.
And then Zach Greinke for the Royals, just because the Royals are going to give him his due and send him to someone that he can compete with.
He wants to go. He'll be definitely a part of that.
He will only go where he wants to go. And then Luis Castillo from the Reds is on there. Again, there you see immediately bottom 3 teams, bottom 4 teams, all being mentioned with trade guys and on this.
Because they have good pieces that other teams want. And the trade deadline, we talked about, the trade deadline is August 2nd.
Yeah.
So that's coming up. It's a little bit less than 2 months away, but you kind of know, like when you see the bottom 5, 6, 7 teams, they're not going.
That's not. If anything, they're just leaping each other.
Yes.
That's all they're doing. They're interchanging.
They're
interchanging to that, not making a move. I don't see them, rolling off a bunch of wins. No. Guys on this list that I do think are very interesting, though. Wilson Contreras of the Cubs. Yeah. Contract is up at the end of the season. Obviously, he's going to get moved. He's on that Cubs team. Right. Best offensive catcher in baseball to this point. I don't think he will be, but I think that at this point, it's him. And then
who's
the Braves. Suzuki's not going anywhere.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Suzuki is on a free agency deal. He brings them a bunch of looks.
Correct.
They're going to build with Suzuki and around other guys.
Right.
Contreras has an expiring contract that they're not going to put money out on the next year. So he's gone. Where he ends up is interesting because did you know that no catcher has ever been traded at the deadline and that team won a World Series?
I did not know that.
Crazy to think that. Because you think about catching, you think about how important catching is. We're going to talk more about how important catching is.
Yeah.
And the fact that this guy can handle the staff, he's really well. Part of the reason for that is because you don't trade a catcher in season to come into a staff and have to learn everybody from the midway point in the season. And something I saw that was interesting on him is that generally, right, the Cubs are a soft-throwing team. In fact, they're the lowest velo team in the Major League Baseball right now, across the board. And landing spots for him could be a team like the Dodgers, even though they got Will Smith and they're happy there. You definitely make that move if you're the Dodgers. This is where that splash play comes, where you can make a big blockbuster deal.
Right.
This is where that goes. And you're sending Will Smith along with a prospect or two.
Right.
Something like that to the Cubs. That could happen. I could see that being a thing. When you're looking at teams that could use catcher help that are all in that mix and that discussion, right? You've got some guys that have been banged up. You've got some teams that could utilize it.
Yeah.
You definitely think that some of these guys that are mentioned, we're even talking about, guys coming up to a team, but do you think of the Mets? It's the first team that comes to mind for me.
Yeah,
because Darnold is not the.
Yeah, and they're going to be buyers at the deadline.
Yeah, they should definitely be buying. Then we know they need a couple of things, and that would be a move that they could make. He's interesting to me. Xander Bogaerts is incredibly interesting to me. The shortstop, that's almost a need for majority of teams out there. There's a lot of contenders that could use a shortstop.
Right.
I immediately think of, when I start thinking of teams, I'm like, Angels, maybe. That's National League list. You got young guys in positions. Would they make a team? Would a team like the Brewers make a move? And
There's so
you know what I
many
mean?
teams
Like,
that need a shortstop. No one's going to turn down a shortstop, so that's going to be a hot name coming.
And a guy that hits, and a guy that's likable in the clubhouse, and a guy that's. But Bogaerts is probably out. And with that said, Devers is probably out too. In Boston.
So too?
Yeah, Rafael Devers is probably out. If he's not out this season, in the offseason, he's out. And the reason being is because you start thinking about where the Red Sox are. And if you think about it from the hobby standpoint, right?
Yeah.
You start looking down the line.
Yeah.
You got Marcelo Mayer waiting. You got Jeter Downs coming. We've already got the Cassis up there, the Bobby Dalbacks, guys that can play corner infield positions. Yeah. You're starting to see this team come about. They just added Trevor Story, right? They added Trevor Story. Yeah. He's not going anywhere. He can move over to shortstop. That's why they can make the move with Bogaerts now. It's because he just goes to shortstop. Right. So you already have these guys that can do this stuff. So they're in a right spot. They're in a place to be able to do something. Name on the list. I know you're going to say it's because I spoke it into existence. But Eric Hosmer, and he's having a great season.
I know. But
and he's on the trade list.
Now,
the thing about this is this list came out, and then it was announced that Will Myers going on the list with I think an oblique injury. Okay. So that could be something that would hold him out. That might just keep Hosmer in San Diego. But I believe that the Padres are trying to move that contract, even a portion of the contract, because they've got some money they're going to have to spend in the offseason. And they know what they're going to have to spend, so
it's a perfect setup for them, though, because like you said, you didn't expect Hosmer to be doing well this year.
No, not like this.
The fact that he's doing really well, now he's a bargaining chip.
And you hate to take production like that out and say you can move a guy like that, but because across the board the lineup all hasn't been hitting, you can kind of get away with it, and the fact that there are guys that can come and play that position. A guy like Cronenworth can play anywhere on the field, and Cronenworth is about to get paid. Right? He's about to get paid. Robert Hassel's going to come up and go into the outfield, which means it might push Will Myers into first base anyways.
So you have Tatis coming back to the team, and you still got guys in waiting. So why not trade Hosmer while he's hitting? You know what I mean? While he's playing well,
and that's when
you'll get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah. So those two guys really big on this. Now, a name you don't see on the list that I think should be on there, although they've already refuted it and said it's not going to happen, is Juan Soto. I'm going to tell you now, if you are the Washington Nationals, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Okay. Yes, you have probably the best hitter in baseball. Yes, you can build around the best hitter in baseball. Absolutely can. But if you don't pay him now and throw out some obscene amount of money and take care of him, you might as well go get a haul and then get into the race. Tell him, we're trading you so we can build players back, and then we are going to go ahead and be in the race to retain your services once we've got those guys at the major league level.
Yeah, and his current contract right now, I just want to look it up. He signed a 1-year deal.
Yes.
For $17 million.
Correct.
With the Nationals. So
he signed that deal because of how things were going. He will be a $400 million a year guy.
Yeah,
and that's insane.
That $17 million was guaranteed.
Or 400, not a year. Sorry, $400 million, contract. They'll find a way. Whoever takes him on will find a way to do that. And they're going to be into a contest. They know there's going to be a bidding war. So if you're the Nationals, stop holding tight. Let go. Take an incredible haul back.
Yep. The Nationals actually offered him $350 million extension, and he turned it down.
He did, because he knows his market's $380 minimum.
Right.
His market's $380 minimum for the same structure, for the same structure of years, and they were trying to get the hometown discount.
Of course,
it's a move they always make.
But it's like, you know what? Like, you have a guy like that, and you're gonna try to lowball him and try to. It's like
No, exactly.
What
And,
ties does he have now?
you know,
He doesn't care.
well, talking about trade deadline, guys moving, guys coming, let's get into Jay's Fantasy Roundup. This is the portion of the program where Jay talks about everything in the fantasy world. And we're what? Baseball today, Jay?
Baseball today, yes. There's two guys that I was kind of surprised were still on the list as not being 100% owned. They still are high owned, but Alejandro Kirk, catcher for Toronto. We talked about catchers a minute ago. He's batting .307 with 5 home runs, but 4 of those home runs have come in the past 5 games. So this is a guy who's actually seen the ball pretty well, and he's a guy that is still only owned in 75% of the leagues, which means he's still out there floating around. Like, this is a guy that should be 100% owned.
Now, the only reason I would think that is because there's been so much discussion on Moreno coming up.
Right.
And then splitting time.
Yeah.
Right?
But this guy's proving that he can hit the ball, and so, like...
Well, I wonder if that motivated him.
It may be motivated, but these are, like, when you play fantasy baseball and you're in for the long haul, you're not necessarily picking up Alejandro Kirk to play him for the rest of the entire season and be like your starting catcher. These are guys you want to pick up that are right for their hot streaks. Grab them, play them a little bit. When they start fizzling out, you just let them go by the wayside because there's always somebody else to pick up.
Because then you can make a move.
Another guy, 70% owned, Trey Mancini, the DH from Baltimore. He's actually hitting the ball pretty well. And a guy I mentioned.
Look at last year.
I know.
Look at last year with Mancini. Why? I'm surprised he's not owned just
in 100% of
just because.
And then Christopher Morel, we mentioned him 2 weeks ago, I believe, on there. He's only 40% owned. He's doing really well, center fielder for the Chicago Cubs. 2 other names. These are guys that I've mentioned numerous times. We talked about Royce Lewis. He's getting into where he's 100% owned in leagues right now.
Yeah.
But Alex Kirilloff, 29% owned in fantasy leagues, and Jose Miranda, 25%. Both Minnesota Twins. We've mentioned these guys before. Now is the time to go get these guys.
Yeah.
Now is time. Alex Kirilloff and Jose Miranda, left fielder for Minnesota Twins, and Miranda, of course, plays third base for Minnesota. So a couple of Twins guys, you see the Twins are playing much better. These guys are a big part of it. I know Kirilloff started off really slowly. He's just getting over that wrist injury. So give him a little bit of time. Stash him on your bench. He's not going to come in and just start killing the ball right away. He came from a wrist injury. So just give him a little bit of time. And the last guy I want to mention, and I know that we're going to kind of segue into some stuff here, Bryce Stott.
Yeah.
Bryson Stott's only 15% rostered. If you look at him as a whole from the entire season, he's only batting .159. He has 27 strikeouts and 88 at-bats. But now, with Gene Segura being out for the next couple of months, he's batting .333 over the past 5 games, and he's not going to be in a situation where he's up and then sent back down.
Right.
Up and then sent back down.
Right.
And when you have that kind of stability issue, you're going to struggle. You know what I mean? Now he's going to be probably an everyday player at shortstop, and so now he's going to get that quality time, and he's showing you over the past 5 games that he can hit the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And, speaking of that, we'll just use that to segue right into it, and that is going to be that we had...
Yeah, baby! Fly ball to deep right field! This game is tied in a long way! Into the second deck, Bryce Harper! He's just lifted the lid off the yard! It's a 6-6 game!
Or if it's a strike, you just got to put it up and hope for the best.
7-6 lead.
That is a good point, John.
Runners go. 3-2 is hit in the air to right field. It's fouled beautifully. It is over! 3-run home run for Bryson Stott. The prayers have been answered. The Phillies have won it here in the bottom of the 9th inning. They win it 9-7. The Vegas connection has tied it and won it.
Harper grabs him and embraces him.
Yeah.
I love seeing that from a Vegas standpoint. It's really neat. He's up because Gene Segura is hurt.
Yeah.
Right? So Stott is up there taking opportunity there. He's not hitting real well, but he's driving runs in, and there's something to be said about that. The kid can play, and that Phillies team, borderline middle, back third, you know, they've got the ability to make some moves and do some things.
Yeah.
And so they have the ability to give him some shots to be able to play. Alec Boehm's playing really well. You get him hitting, and you get a couple of these guys. The Phillies team could be a lot different come after the trade deadline.
It could be, yeah.
And could even back into the season. I think when I think of this team, I think about the Atlanta Braves.
Yes.
when they just win on that crazy second half run.
And these are one of those teams where it's not in the bottom half to where you're like, these guys are done, they're going to be sellers. This is a team to where if they could put together a nice little winning streak, now all of a sudden they're in that top 15.
Right.
So that's one of those teams that we don't know at this point whether they're going to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline. I think this next 2 months is very crucial for them to decide whether they're going to be buyers or sellers.
No, absolutely. So again, guys, you can pay attention to that because that'll also not just help in your fantasy rosters on whether you're picking guys up, moving them, see them long-term, situations, opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a guy will be moving from a team, say like Christian Pache, who was moving in a jammed-up outfield and going to be splitting time to playing all the time for the A's, right? You get a guy like that,
sometimes.
that can help your fantasy team a ton.
Right, there's just the opportunity sometimes, and obviously we love it because he's a Las Vegas kid. Desert Oasis High School. Went to UNLV out here in Vegas.
Yes,
so
he did.
We love the locals doing well.
And the fact that him and Bryce are some best friends and connected because they, both from Vegas and have those hometown roots. So, so getting into it, it's time for Plus or Minus. This is where we talk about your investments in the sports card hobby and where you might be able to make some money or get invested long term. But either way, we've got some stuff. Now, last week we really went into it from a standpoint of like the guys were undervalued in the hobby and where there was plays, and that already come back to play for us.
Yes.
This week I want to get into something that's actually been out for a little bit. I've talked about it both in my streams and I've talked about it amongst some of the people, especially the guys in the shop, and that is Bowman U football. And I want to talk about Bowman U for a little bit. The reason I want to talk about Bowman U is because I think that for the price point, it is incredible. And Bowman U is a great rip. Now, traditionally, when you're talking about collegiate product, you start talking about guys that are in the draft class, in their college unis, and everyone's excited about them being in their pro uni. Right?
That's what everyone wants to see.
Right. So you're not as excited about that from a draft standpoint because of that purpose.
Right.
But what we have to realize is we've got to know where we're at and where we're going.
Right.
And what we do know is this. Fanatics have acquired Topps. Topps has acquired the licensing rights to the NFL moving forward in 2 years. Which means this Bowman U product being NIL licensed, which means that allows all the players in college football the ability to be in this product because of the name, image, likeness.
Right.
They did an incredible job of putting in a ton of the underclassmen, sophomores, juniors, and then, of course, this year's class of potential draft picks. Plus, the draft picks for this year were in this product.
Right.
All with Bowman First, all with Bowman First parallels, all with Bowman First autographs.
Which makes it huge because, like you said, like when someone goes to get Kenny Pickett's first Bowman card or first card, his rookie card, it's going to be in this product, and otherwise you're going to have to wait months. Like we just hit Prism with the Trevor Lawrence rookies and the Justin Fields rookies and the Mac Jones rookies, and it's 2022, and we're talking about the summer of 2022. So you're going to have to wait a while to get these guys. But Bowman's like, no, hold on a minute. You don't have to wait a while.
Right.
Here's all these guys, including the underclassmen, like you said, C.J. Stroud. All these guys with their first Bowman card. You
even have guys like Ukulele in here for Florida, and like guys that are unknowns that could do. And you got some smaller schools in there that have quarterback product. You have running backs. You got wide receivers. Olave's in this product. You've got a lot of these guys that both either got drafted or are potential, and the fact that you've got the high round pick potentials, like guys like Bryce Young, right? That these guys are projected as the big guys.
Yeah, his first auto.
What this is telling you, right? And what this is telling you is that moving forward, Topps is telling you that the Bowman First thing is going to be part of the hobby for football moving forward. And if that is the case, they're telling you how the people are going to collect.
Right.
And so if you can catch it now, you can take advantage of it. Guys like, being able to pick up a Bryce Young auto for under $1,000.
Right.
The guy that's the projected number 1 overall pick, I think is incredible. And then you start going down the list, and there's guys that right now, people who are sharps in this are overlooking.
Yes.
Because they're sharps to the names that they've heard of, but not necessarily the guys that have opportunities to do something.
Right.
Right? And you're going to see that there's that. Plus, like you said, You got Kenny Pickett. You've got even Malik Willis. I know he ended up falling and being later than we thought. You got guys like that with their first who you never know, right?
You never know. And
Russell Wilson was a second-round pick. Tom Brady went 199 overall.
Even if Willis sits behind Tannehill for 2 years,
right,
and then he comes into his own and he ends up blowing up, people are going to want his first card.
Of course.
And here's for his first Bowman card, and that's the stuff people are going to be looking for, and it's incredibly cheap for the stuff that's in there.
So
they guys are in their college uniform.
They brought out basketball this week.
Mm-hmm.
And in basketball, again, it's the same scenario. You have Topps acquiring, the NBA licensing, moving forward.
Yep.
And when that happens, that's going to be, right? So, again, they're giving you the baseline for how you're going to collect this stuff. And the collegiate product for basketball just come out. You guys can grab it right now. Holgram is the name of the product. And in fact, what's funny is that because college basketball was kind of like, things are so lukewarm last year and so many teams were able to compete,
right,
no one really knows who like the standouts were to move forward,
right,
these next year.
Cut, yeah.
This is one of those players. Holgram's definitely one of the tops on the radar. Right. He's one of the guys you should be looking for. But that product's out, guys. I'm telling you, go buy yourself some Bowman U, put some boxes away.
Just sit on it.
Own some of the product, buy some of the autographs and singles, buy some of the underclassmen that you can get incredibly cheap.
Yeah.
There's guys that are throwing the product up just because, I don't know this quarterback, let's throw him up, $50, buy it now. You could be getting absolute steals on colors, parallels, all this stuff. There is value in the product. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying there's not value now. There definitely is. There's players that draw, premiums and those case hits. Like you saw, that Holgram, this Kahuna card, the auto Kahunas, that's a case hit, right? So those are big cards. Again, those are obviously of interest for people, but they're out there. Guys can get this stuff now and get ahead of the curve. Mm-hmm. Talked about him for a second. We mentioned the Mets as a possible landing spot for Wilson Contreras, but we did talk about the number 7 overall prospect in baseball, Alvarez. And here's a little snippet of what the Mets have coming their way.
Take a 3-2 lead in the third. He is unbelievable.
Look at him running the bases. It's like he's sprinting around those bases. Like
a big fist bump with Beatty, and then the rest of his team.
So in this game, Alvarez hits it over the scoreboard. The guy can hit. He mashes. He was someone that the hobby was really looking at a few years ago. I'm going to tell you guys now, if you have a chance to go out and grab some Alvarez stuff, do it before he makes it to the big leagues. Adley Rutschman had a lot of fanfare because they thought he was going to start the season there.
Right.
He's one of the guys that's going to come up. The catcher position's changing in baseball. We're watching it happen before our eyes. Right? Catchers are now one of the most athletic players on their team. They're guys that probably, like Buster Posey was really that guy that kind of was this player.
He was,
right?
He was.
The difference is that we've looked at catchers and batting averages so poorly over the years that the hobby really hasn't caught on. But I actually think the hobby's starting to warm up to it.
Rutschman and then Henry Davis too. You're getting these names out there that they weren't. Not those two guys in particular, but catchers weren't really collectible. No one wanted the catchers, but now they're starting to get that little bit of a steam.
They are, and they're catching up. And so one guy that I mentioned early on, first off, real quick, buy Alvarez. Second thing is, I mentioned him really early on from this year's draft class was Hunter Goodman.
Yeah.
And then someone reached out to me the other day. Actually, I can tell you who it was. It's Anthony from Chicago Cards Connection. Reaches out to me, and Anthony says, hey, he goes, Hunter Goodman is hitting the cover off the baseball. And already being talked about moving up. Just like I said, that he would be fast-tracked to the big leagues.
Right.
He's going to be a guy for the Rockies. These catchers, it's a different time. It's a different player. It's a different style.
It is.
And the catchers, because now there's a DH, right? The catchers are now the Yasmani Grandals hitting 5.
Right.
They're hitting. They're actually in the lineup and producing. They're not sitting out as many games as they once did.
Right.
Because they're getting spelled in big games, and they're making these moves that you would do with some of your position players.
Right.
That you're like so worried about your catcher and whatnot. Guys throw shorter amounts.
Yeah.
that they're able to move a secondary catcher in to take up some innings or whatever it is.
Let him DH.
So these guys get to hit, and then when they do take their day off, they still hit.
Yes.
And that's the key.
That's what the best part about it is that when they do get that day off from being a catcher, they still are in the lineup.
Still in the lineup. So guys, grab this, but you have a chance. And with that said, I'm going to bring up another catcher. And it's kind of a surprising one to most people, Sam Huff. He just came up recently from to the Rangers.
Yeah, he was in AAA, and he was in AAA playing, and he was doing okay.
Yeah.
Moved up to the Rangers, and now in the last 18 games, he's batting .367.
Yes. And this is a guy that has 2 career minor league home runs over 500 feet. This guy's an absolute stud. He's stealing a job right now because he's up early. He was not supposed to be up early. He is up early. If he keeps this up, he's the catcher of the future for the Rangers.
Right.
And he is a big, big part of that team moving forward. You can buy Sam Huff stuff for next to nothing.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion. When you can buy Bowman First autos, color autos, for under $300, $200, you can buy them in that range, you are stealing them.
Yes.
They are incredibly cheap because you know what these products, I mean, you're talking about cards that can be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 cards if the guy takes off.
Big, yes.
Like, to be in on that ground level is incredible. So don't sleep on the catchers, guys. You do have an opportunity. Sam Huff, another buy for you that's out there, and you can. Now, let's give a little clip here, give a little background information on this guy, and then I'll get into what I'm thinking.
Typed international prospects ever, Jason Dominguez signed for $5.1 million out of the Dominican Republic in July 2019 after drawing comparisons to the likes of Bo Jackson, Mickey Mantle, and Mike Trout.
So, Jason Dominguez.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the last 2 years, all the hobby has done is get prospect card after insert after everything in Jason Dominguez, and everybody's Jason Dominguez crazy, and then falls off.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, Jason Dominguez is a bomb. I've heard it all. I watched his Chrome First BGS 9.5s go from $1,200 to selling for $100.
That's
right?
Nuts.
Which is crazy to me.
He's 19 years old.
The kid is 19 years old. He's showing progress. I told you guys earlier in the year when we were just having a general conversation that don't knock him. His first year, he was he's a kid.
Yeah.
Right? He was at 18, 17. He was in the United States playing baseball professionally. Right? He had to learn the culture. He had to learn how to speak. He had to learn all these things, and he was having camera after camera after camera shoved in his face, right? The kid is raw, very good. He's not quite as fast as they thought he was going to be, but that's because he added some bulk, right? Hits the cover off the baseball. He actually had an exit velo this year I think it was in a spring training game of 117. There's only 4 times in the last 10 years that a major leaguer has had exit velo of 117.
Wow.
Okay? So just gives you idea of the talent level this kid is. He's a switch hitter. He's a center fielder. He is going to be a stud. He is an absolute face of the franchise. The question becomes, you're the Yankees. Are you keeping him and building for the future with him still? When you have Volpe, when you have Sweeney, when you have Cabrera all coming, right? Or are you going to sit and make the move to get into all in for a World Series this year? Because the haul that you would return would be unbelievable.
And he's going to be the player that everyone wants when they're going to make a deal.
And let me tell you something. Let's throw something out here, right? Who's behind the dish for New York for the Yankees right now? Who's the catcher for the Yankees? Jimmy would be able to tell us, but he's...
I know. I can see the guy's face.
Right.
I'm not going to blow it. I can see the guy's face.
Okay.
Catcher, go ahead.
But here's the thing. Is Wilson Contreras an upgrade at catcher for the Yankees?
Yes.
I think he's the upgrade for 95% of the catchers in the league, right? He throws the ball well, hits well. Could you see? Because as good as the Yankees pitching has been,
yes,
they could use one more starter, right?
It could. Jose Trevino.
Who has arms that are veterans that are on the market? The Cubs.
Yes.
Who has a catcher who's on the market? The Cubs. And what team could use both of those things at the trade deadline to solidify where they're at?
Yeah, that would
The
be
Yankees.
a huge deal, too, to have a Yankees-Cubs trade to get another arm and to get Contreras.
Right.
And you move Dominguez.
And then you move
That's who they're
Dominguez
gonna want.
there.
That's who they're going to want.
And then Dominguez goes there, and you probably also in that deal, I would bet, probably return 2 prospects on top of it. And if you could, I doubt that you could, but if you're the Yankees and you could grab a Triantos or a Christian Hernandez in that deal, oh my gosh.
You think they would be able to grab a Christian Hernandez?
I mean, I don't know if they would, right? They might be able to get Ed Howard, though. Right? See, the Cubs have a stable of young guys.
Yeah.
These are all guys that they have lying and waiting. But Dominguez, to me, is an absolute buy right now. It kind of reminds me of Luka, where we were talking about Luka about halfway through the season, and I was like, go hedge Luka right now, because if they get to the playoffs and he wins the series, and in this case, he did, and he did exactly what we needed him to do, and his prices jumped. We saw that 30%. Dominguez isn't going to be a 30% jump. Dominguez is Bowman Chrome first, PSA 10s. Those are going to double. His autos are going to jump.
Yeah.
And they're going to jump big. It's really easy to forget.
It was just
wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was so much hype when his first cards were coming out that even his bases were going crazy. Like his base Bowman rookie card was going crazy. So like, yeah.
And you're going to have time to buy this. And the reason being is because the casual fan isn't paying attention to what Jason Dominguez is here. No. Just purely he had a bad year and he was a bum.
Yeah.
And it's not that at all. What I do hope, he ends up with a team like the Cubs and not a team like the Reds.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want him to end up there.
No.
Like, that's not the situation we want him to end up at. We don't want him going to Oakland. We don't want those situations happening at this point, because for his career to land in a place like the Cubs.
Yes.
To land with maybe an Anaheim. To land with maybe, like, that's where
you still
the
want
move
in
would
a
be.
Decent market, but maybe not necessarily New York, where they're up in your face 24/7.
Well, exactly. So, guys, you can get out there. You'll be able to make some money off Jason Dominguez stuff pretty easily. Yeah. He's a definite buy. His stuff is incredibly too low at this point, and I do think that he is an absolute something that you guys should be on the run. You guys should be trying to grab.
Yeah.
All right, guys, coming up here. That's behind things. That's behind things. That's my fault. I gotta find it. Here, let me see if I can find this one. Let's fix it. Let's fix it right in the middle of the video. Well,
we'll do it live.
We'll do it live. I have this overlay, and it is in front of everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's my fault. There we go. Stay up with Jay up. 1 o'clock today. Jay is going to be running Prism football breaks.
Yes.
Divisionals, maybe?
I'll do divisionals.
I think we're going to go divisionals.
That's pretty fun.
So we'll be looking at doing divisionals. 1 o'clock on the Whatnot app. GameDay LV. Jay will be back on with you guys here. You guys will be able to get in the hunt. The hunt is real, and guys, we're running hot. So
the Prism stuff is on fire right now.
We are running hot, guys. It is crazy how well Prism has been hitting.
Yes.
So we do have that. Then you'll have Johnny Rip will be on tonight. He'll be on. I'm assuming he'll still be on the Prism hunt. Guys, we have so much Prism we'll be running. Tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. Pacific, I will be on with Baseball Breaks. So Baseball Breaks, part of my 2 for Tuesday. And then 6 p.m. Pacific tomorrow night. We're going back. We're going prospecting. Prospects, singles, rookies, all baseball singles, running it crazy, starting everything at $1. And there's guys we talked about today that are in that box for this show.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Alvarez's
are in there. There's definitely guys that you guys can get. So if you're watching the podcast here and you come on and you join us, you'll be able to catch it. It's a good time to buy that stuff, guys. You can buy those singles cheap, buy them raw, get them ungraded, go grade them yourself, take advantage of it. And I can tell you this, I got more Christopher Morel. We got some more Morel in there. Morel's really sneaky. He's really sneaky. And he's one of those guys that is out there. So again, guys, make sure you plan on doing that. And then new product this week. Just kind of watch out for the announcements on our social media.
Yes.
Of course, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, which is GameDay Sports Cards LV.
Yeah.
The TikTok's new, so if you guys can get on there, go give the TikTok a follow. Let's get to 1,000 so we can go live on there and have some fun. That's when we get crazy.
Do it.
But otherwise, guys, we appreciate you being here each and every week with us. Of course, hopefully we'll see Jimmy back next week. Maybe it might be a couple weeks with everything that is coming out, and we've got shows and all this stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to be, I think, in Newport this weekend.
And let's say you guys are going, yeah.
Yeah, so we're supposed to be in Newport this weekend. So again, guys, make sure you guys, pay attention to social media and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we appreciate you guys being here. And I'm going to let you say it to Jay.
All right, let's go Monster Hunt.
Let's